Hey friends, it's Ron. It's really good to be back. As you know, I did a little bit of traveling for work, and that prevented me from doing the work that I need to do on this amplifier. But I'm back now, and I finally got a chance yesterday to sit and work on this thing and solve a problem that I've been having that I've wanted to share with you. So I'm going to go through that and share with you what I found, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the next steps are. So let me get this camera mounted in the tripod, and then I'm going to talk through what I've learned, and hopefully this will be something that you can enjoy. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. So you'll see here in the chassis that I've got everything wired correctly, and theoretically everything's good. I need to clean these wires up just a little bit more. They're a little bit too long. I'm going to shorten these up just a tad. But the chassis is in good shape. The problem I was having is when I would connect the speaker jack, which is right here, and I'm going to zoom in on that and see if we can get the close-up of that. Right here, okay? So this is the output jack for the speaker. The problem I had is when I had this output jack mounted to the chassis, and I would turn the amplifier on, I would get a high-pitch oscillation and a squeal. And I thought, well, maybe it's related to wires crossing over or something along those lines. I even put a shielded wire here going from the, on the schematic. If you look at the schematic, it's right here. And this is the speaker output, okay? So I actually, it's right here, sorry. And I put a shielded wire from here, from this 22K resistor, going down here to the speaker jack. No luck. So while I'm troubleshooting, I take the speaker jack out of the chassis, resolder the wires, plug it in, turn it on, quiet as can be. Right? I say, that's interesting. It's quiet when it's out of the chassis. So let me mount it back in the chassis and see what happens. I put it back in the chassis, turn it on, start squealing. I say, that's interesting. Now why is a ground causing a squeal? So I played around with it for a little while. I checked the wiring. I made sure that it was exactly where it needed to be. And then I realized that, well, you know what? Maybe I have the wrong output transformer, because I didn't have an output transformer for the Fender Champ. This is the one that was in originally, right here. Okay. So I said, let me order an output transformer that's made for this model, and I did, and it's this one right here, and it's a Mojo HT6173 right there. So I installed that, put it in, same problem, high-pitched squeal. So that caused me to start to really think about things and try to figure it out. I went on one of my message boards where I go when I have a problem that I can't solve, and someone said, hey, try reversing the leads of your output transformer, not the ones that go to the speaker, but the ones that go to the power board. And I'll show you on this particular one. It's this one right here. It's this red and this blue. Okay, here's the output transformer, here's the red and the blue. Now, before I tell the rest of the story, I have to show you something. So if you look at the schematic right here, you'll see that this is where the output transformer comes out, and it wants, I don't know if you could see this, it wants the red wire to go to the positive side of the 16 microfarad electrolytic, and it wants this blue wire here to go to pin 3 of the 6V6. Right there. Blue, red. So I look at my output transformer and I go, blue, red. We got a winner, right? I get my new one in and I look at the wires coming out. Blue, red. Okay, great. So I put my blue wire here on the 16 microfarad cap. I put my red wire here on the 6V6. I turn it on. Huge oscillation. The issue is really simple if you think about it. The issue is that I had these leads reversed. Right? I had the blue going to the 6V6 and the red going here. And the problem is that on these replacement parts, you can't go by the colors. You just can't go by the colors. The colors mean absolutely nothing. And I fell into the trap of assuming that the colors that were on this schematic from 50 years ago were correct. and they are not. And the reason why is because output transformers have a negative feedback loop and a positive feedback loop. And when you reverse the wires, I was putting the positive feedback loop in the circuit. And when I had this mounted, I was actually creating a positive feedback loop, and that's the oscillation. So I reversed these wires, have it mounted in the chassis, turned it on, quiet as can be. So there's my issue, right? So when you're using an output transformer like this, you need to pay attention to which is the negative side and which is the positive feedback side. Very, very important. I didn't do that. I assumed that the colors were right from a 50-year-old schematic, right? So that problem is solved. So now the amp actually works really well. The other thing that I wanted to show you is, let's see if we can get this camera down a little bit. So because I'm going to be using this in a combo amp, I wanted more than just the volume control. And you'll see here, again on the schematic, it only has a volume control. But I wanted a tone control. So I did a mod. So I put a tone control in. I did some research on how a Fender Deluxe is wired, and I figured it out in the schematic. And if you look here in the chassis, which is right here, I added this tone control. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if we can bring the camera down just a little bit. Okay, it's right here. Okay, and you'll see here that I put basically a 0.0005 cap here, and this is a 0.005 cap to ground. Hooked it all up. Everything's working great. So when I power the amp up now, I get no squeal, I have full volume control, and I have a tone control that works. Now, on one last thing on this output transformer, I do have a 4 ohm lead as well. So I may consider putting another speaker output here for 4 ohms, or I may just tie this one up and not use it. I don't know yet. On a combo amp, you're really not going to change speakers, so it's probably not going to get used. So my next step is going to be to clean up these wires, and then I want to spend some time figuring out how I'm going to hook up this meter. Right? This is the VU meter that I showed you. So what I think here's the problem. When I mount this in the cabinet, right here, right, it's going to be above the chassis. And I'm going to have 6.3 volts of AC running there, and I really don't want it to be dangerous for anybody. I want it to be safe. So I have to think of a way to safely run wires from the chassis to these connection points. These two are for the 6.3 volt lamp. These two are for the signal that's going to come out of the speaker jack here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these Luminaire disconnect power plugs. You see them right here. Basically, I've got one here, and it's basically a press fit wire. Right? It goes in, you press it in, it crimps itself, stays in there. You do so on the other end, and you're able to connect and disconnect. And I'm going to have these things, I'm going to have one end of this coming out of the top of the chassis. And I'll make sure I twist wires, and I use shielded wires so I don't create any hum. But I'm going to use a pair for the 6.3 volt, and I'm going to use a pair for the speaker output, which will go to this. And then I'll just use you know, some typical loop connections to connect it to these screws. Matter of fact, I have a whole kit of them here that I'm gonna use. So that's how I'm going to connect this. So I'm going to work on that. I need to start measuring and figuring out how much space I'm going to need at the top of the chassis that measures up to the top of where the meter is. So that's going to be next. One other thing I want to share with you that I got from Terry from D-Lab. When you're troubleshooting an oscillation problem like I had my speaker connected, I was driving the dog nuts, I was driving the cat's nuts, I was driving the bird nuts. Terry kind of opened my eyes into a better way to do it. So what you could do is you can disconnect your speaker like this, and you can use a dummy load resistor, which I have one right here somewhere. Right? Here's a dummy load resistor. It's an 8 ohm, 200 watt dummy load resistor. And what you do is you connect this to the speaker outputs right here, and then you don't have to connect the speaker. You're not going to blow your circuitry. But the other part that Terry was really, really good about teaching me here was when you're using a digital meter like I am, you really can't get good readings. So his suggestion was you use a good old VTVM, which I have right here. And this way, when you turn that on and you're measuring DC voltage across the speaker output, you could see the oscillation occurring. And that was absolutely occurring when I was troubleshooting. After I reverse the wires, the needle stays nice and solid where it needs to be. So, so for those of you that don't have a VTVM, this is inexpensive. I think this was $29. It just does work that the digital ones can't do. A digital meter is always processing and calculating, and it can't handle the speed. So that's just a public service announcement, and a thank you to Terry from D-Lab. I don't think Terry watches my channel, but that's okay. I still want to make sure he gets credit. So that's where we are. We're gonna do the final cleanup on this. We're going to potentially. I have to still mount a fuse holder here. I have to mount the power cord, and I have this great power cord which I took off of another UPS that wasn't working. So I've got a great power cord here with an angled plug. I have to put a fuse. I have to put a power switch, and I'm debating from a power switch perspective. I have one of these combo switches right here. And basically this is a volume and a power switch. And that's what these Fender Champs actually had. So I may rewire this and put this in there and use it as a combo on-off switch, etc. I have to decide if I want to do that yet. And your power leads go here. And then it's going to be time to start reinforcing the cabinet and start mounting everything in the cabinet and getting this amp going. I do have a speaker, which I'll show you. This is the speaker I'm going to use in this thing. This is what it looks like. It's an 8.5-inch speaker, 8 ohm, and this should be more than plenty for what I need for this amp. And I believe it handles up to I don't know, 100 watts or something. So I'm not worried about that. That's easy. But that's the speaker that I'm going to use, and that's going to be mounted inside the radio cabinet. So that's where we are. So this weekend I have nothing to do, which is great. I've got plenty of time to work on my project, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So, for those of you that are building amps and you're using output transformers, make sure you pay attention to the wires. Don't assume the color codes are right. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll come back with another video this weekend or two to let you know where we are with getting this thing buttoned up and ready to install in the cabinet. Alright, thanks for watching everybody. See you soon.